Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our gathering for Manufacturing Technology Working Group focusing on Industry 4.0. We are 3 weeks into the new year, and hopefully all is going well on your end. We have a good mass of folks here on the line. We have about 23 participants here live. With our as we start every meeting, we'd just like to be able to open up the floor for any announcements or roundtable that us at large may want to bring to this team. We do have Colin Cooper, who will give us an overview of the Connecticut's Manufacturing Innovation Fund as our provider spotlight for Industry 4.0 services. And then we also have Eric Fogelman, who's from Constep, who will be joining us to talk about Siri assessment, so Smart Industry Readiness Index. We had some conversations during the end of our meeting last time, so we thought we'd invite Eric to join us, so thank you, sir. As a reminder, we are continuing to meet bi-weekly. It's crazy that our next meeting will be held in February, but I'll pause on this slide just to remind those that are on this working group that if you are available for the upcoming meetings to provide an i4.0 service provider spotlight, please do so. Let either Jeff or myself know if you have any conflicts. So we have 3 lined up, but as we've shared previously, there are others across this wider array of providers that are not a part of our working group. So we'll happily take suggestions as well. I know Jeff and I will be working through that. So just checking our attendance here. If there's any opening remarks that B or Ron or Jeff or anyone else on the line would like to bring to this group, I'll open the floor.
Well, first of all, thank you for all the work the team has been doing, particularly tackling that on January 5th. Kudos, that's not easy. I had the opportunity to check with President Toro and her presentation, and very, very interesting information. I also wanted to mention that this is such a good model for work, what we created here. And, kudos to Jackie and Jeff for getting it going. Yesterday, we had a really good forum at Comstead on cybersecurity, and we brought again providers to talk to us about their issues and how they're going to market and so forth, and the issues that our companies are having. And we need to summarize that data, but I will suggest that something that, some of the learnings of that can be shared with this group. As we know, cybersecurity is part of one of these technologies, but this whole format of conversation where we continue to bring providers and clients and customers is such a good way to really educate the ecosystem. So it's a really good model, and we want to expand it into other areas of practice. So thank you.
Thanks, Dee.
So I just wanted to let the service providers know, and the list is right there, that we will begin surveying you shortly. I will send an email to each of our prime contacts on the service provider list so that we can reach out to you. But also keep in mind that if you have a marketing or more communication style person that you'd like to direct that to, that you can respond to the forthcoming email and let me know their contact information.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. All right, Mr. Cooper.
All right. Let me see if I can share my screen here, and this. Can you see my screen now?
Yes. Yep.
Great. I apologize on the date on here. This is the same presentation I had given to a different group about a month ago. Let me see here. Okay, so this is, we'll talk a little bit about the background and of the MIF and the legacy programs and what's been achieved to date, and then we'll talk about sort of legacy. There are 3 legacy programs that we're sort of reconstituting right now, and then 6 new initiatives, and we'll touch base on those. So the MIF was established back in 2014. really got the first programs up and functioning in the beginning of 2015. So it's been around for over six really operating for over 6 years. We're in our 7th year of operations, and we found ourselves coming through the pandemic where we had used up a lot of our legacy funding, didn't have funds available in new funds in fiscal 21. We're able to work with the executive branch and the legislative branch to get support for additional funding of $10 million a year for each fiscal 22 and 23. We not only got the legislative approval and got it in the budget, but we actually got, as people know, sometimes the trick is to get through bond committee and actually get the funds. And we were fortunate to get on the agenda in the July last summer, the first bond committee meeting, commission meeting in fiscal 22, and got our funds. So we got access to the $10 million, which allowed us to again sort of replenish funding for our 3 main legacy programs, which I'll talk about in a minute, and then also to provide funding for a number of new initiatives that we discussed with a lot of different ideas, discussed with the MIF board, and then got approval to fund 6 new initiatives. Since its inception, the MIF has been allocated $100 million. In terms of the impact, the fund has helped create or retain over 20,000 jobs for Connecticut manufacturers. We've assisted over 2,000 manufacturers. We've trained or retrained 28,000 workers. To me, that's just an amazing number there, and engaged over 18,000 students. And I believe those students come from 167 different towns. I don't know the 2 towns that we're missing in that group, but pretty wide reach there. I think it's important, the MIF, we look at the MIF as catalyst capital. We're not looking to underwrite initiatives solely. We generally look to use the state funds as a catalyst to leverage state funds. And so each dollar, as I said down below here, each dollar of MIF funding deployed is matched with over $1.60. Actually, in the final accounting for the fiscal year-end audit report we put out, annual report we put out, it's about $1.70. So it's doing its job. It's acting as a catalyst to get private and third-party funding into our manufacturing ecosystem. The legacy program. Yes.
Is it okay to ask a question now, or wait until you're done?
Sure. Go ahead.
So the previous slide, that the private / whatever else you had there, is it, you don't have to share the names of the companies? What's the number of companies that's involved?
Okay, so again, most of those 2,000 manufacturers that have been assisted have had are in programs where they have skin in the game. So different programs require a different match by the manufacturers. For incumbent worker training, the state will pay up to sort of half of the out-of-pocket cost of third-party training, and the manufacturer has to pay the other cost. For the manufacturing voucher program, we require at least a 1-to-1 match, and depending on whether you've accessed the program before and how much you're looking to get, you may have to have a 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 match. We also have programs like Energy on the Line, where we help manufacturers underwrite the cost of energy saving initiatives. And generally, the state money involved in that is probably, maybe 5% of the whole initiative. So, 95% of the money is coming either from the manufacturer or is being borrowed by the manufacturer to fund the initiative. So different programs have different matches, but that gives you some sort of sense. Most of that money is coming from the manufacturers themselves. In some of the programs, they're actually borrowing the funding to finance an initiative, and then obviously they have to pay it back over time. But they're not borrowing from us; they're borrowing from a third party.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. So let me go to the next here. Okay, seems like everybody's emailing me right now. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Okay, so that gives you some sense of the outcome. So our programs are really set into sort of several different buckets. We talk about accelerating growth, helping our manufacturers accelerate growth. That includes the manufacturing voucher program, which is a matching grant. Most companies use that for capital expenditures, but you can also use that for things like ERP implementations, or sometimes people bring in third parties to help them with some initiative. Energy on the line, again, is for, energy is a big cost driver for manufacturers, especially in the Northeast. And we have a program to help underwrite the cost of energy efficiencies. Frequently, that might involve something like the installation of a solar array on the roof of a manufacturing facility. In terms of facilitating innovation, we have a program we work with CCAT on Industry 4.0 awareness, as well as there's a matching grant program for companies implementing digital technology in their companies. Likewise, working with CCAT, there's a high rate added manufacturing initiative. A lot of it is around workshops and outreach, demonstrations. But there was also a competitive grant situation in their matching grant program, where we awarded 6 grants of $100,000 each to companies implementing additive manufacturing in their operations. That was very successful. We also have the Digital Model Initiative, which is primarily funded by a federal grant, and that's around helping implement model-based definition in our defense manufacturing community in the state. And our partners in that are CCAT and CONSTEP and CCSU. And we also have a significant engagement from the large OEMs in the state, specifically Electric Boat, Sikorsky, and Pratt & Whitney. Under cultivating talent, obviously, workforce is top priority for manufacturers. We have our Incumbent Worker Training Program. Again, that program has tremendous reach, is very cost effective for the state in terms of the training that's provided. It's very cost effective for the employers. And that is probably right now our highest visibility, and that and the voucher programs that we run. We have a manufacturing apprenticeship program where in the past we've partnered with the Department of Labor on that, as well as with the Incumbent Worker Training. Those are 2 programs where we need to find new partners going forward, because DOL no longer has the staffing to administer those programs, and we're in the process of transitioning those over to new partners to run that. College Connections is really something that should be called sort of Career Connections. It provides students at comprehensive high schools access to manufacturing training programs at our advanced manufacturing centers affiliated with our community colleges. And then priming the pipeline are really some outreach initiatives reaching into the middle schools and down into the elementary schools to make people aware of the opportunities and really spark the interest at an early age in terms of manufacturing. So in terms of, before I go to new programs, we have 3 legacy programs, the manufacturing voucher program, the incumbent worker training program, and the apprenticeship program that we are sort of replenishing with funding. And we will be changing the parameters, modifying them slightly, but I would say, 80% of the DNA is the same as the legacy programs we have. I expect the transition to the next tranche of funding for the voucher program to be relatively seamless. We're using CCAT again to administer that. They do a great job. And we already have a draft of the guidelines and procedures for the next tranche. And that should be going effective as the current tranche. As we draw that down, we'll probably run through that funding at the end of the first quarter of this year, and then have the next sort of tranche available starting in the second quarter of this year, calendar quarter. So in terms of the apprenticeship and incumbent worker training, we have funding right now in incumbent worker training that we're going to be drawing that down through the middle of this year, and then hope to have the new program up and running as we go into the second half of this second calendar half of this year with the new funding and the new administrator. The apprenticeship program right now, we run through the legacy funding. We need to get the new administrator in place and get that up and going. And that's likely going to be sort of towards the middle of this calendar year when we get that going again. In terms of the new programs, we have a really innovative proposal from the folks at CCAT, supported by the Connecticut Independent Colleges. The acronym is CICC, I think, but it's Jen Wildness's group of our independent colleges and universities who are working closely with CCAT on this. And this is to get between 100 and 200 Connecticut resident engineering students into internships at Connecticut manufacturers. We train a lot of engineers in the state. There's a need, a desire, and a need to retain more of those in the state. And so this is an effort to get those engineering students engaged with Connecticut manufacturers earlier in their educational career, to allow those roots to take hold with the goal of retaining more of those students in state. I think everybody's aware that there's a significant number of open manufacturing positions in the state. The largest sector, if you sort of look through it, is engineering. Obviously, a lot of companies would prefer to hire a mid-career experienced engineer. They're not making any more of those. There's a finite number of those, and we just need to get our manufacturers more engaged with early career engineers, getting them into the manufacturing community, and then beginning and then starting their career there. So that's the focus of that. We hope to have that up and running for the summer internship period. Again, we've gotten a proposal on that. Need to work through that. Likely be taking that to the MIF board in February for final approval, hopefully. That's the plan. The digital readiness and cybersecurity, this is to matching grants to help underwrite the cost of assessments. Everybody's aware and has heard, and this group is working on Industry 4.0. The problem is when you get into the manufacturing ecosystem, companies don't know what they don't know. It's a little like dogs watching television. They know something's exciting going on out there. They can, but they don't quite understand it. And so we've got to get people from the point where they don't know what they don't know to at least they know what they don't know. And then in addition, the these digital readiness assessments are going to provide the business owner, business leader with a roadmap customized to their business on where their best opportunities are to invest in digital or Industry 4.0 technology. And likewise with cybersecurity, we're going to have similar assessments on that front to help companies understand where their gaps are and provide a roadmap to cyber maturity. These are both really high priority initiatives for our manufacturers in the state. We have an initiative. We have a well thought out proposal from a company called Forge to match Connecticut innovators with Connecticut manufacturers. Our opinion is if it's invented here in Connecticut, we ought to be making it here in Connecticut. And we had a partner for this. The MIF board approved underwriting half the cost of this initiative. We had a partner in this, Stanford Next, which is an innovation organization. They their commitment has been put on hold. There is a sort of a regime change, a management change at CT Next, which is sort of the parent organization above Stanford Next. And as their executive director, they lost their executive director. I gather this morning they just announced the new executive director, but they want to hold on funding until the new executive director gets their feet under them and gets the lay of the land. It's unlikely that they're going to be in a position to underwrite this before the start of next fiscal year, which is July. So we're working with them to see if there's anything we can do to accelerate that. We have a proposal that's ready to go. Forge is ready to go. We just don't have the matching funding that we thought we had a commitment on. So, but I'm confident it'll be there. It's just a question of timing. The fourth thing here is an advertising campaign. We have state's done a great job over the last, say, 10 years, sort of building out its talent training infrastructure. We have really great advanced manufacturing centers around the state affiliated with our community colleges. Work's been done to help revitalize our technical high schools. There are programs coming online at our comprehensive high schools. There's just, I think I know we have a very strong talent training infrastructure. We just don't have the throughput right now or the demand for those programs. So this campaign is really sort of two-pronged. It's a tactical aspect where we want to drive more demand and more throughput through the existing programs. And that's sort of the short-term objective that we're looking for. But longer term, we're looking to, as we say, sort of win the hearts and minds. We need students, parents, educators, and administrators to understand that manufacturing provides really varied, exciting, and varied career opportunities, not just good jobs, but career opportunities. And then also for people to understand that a student beginning their career in manufacturing doesn't mean that they're ending their educational career. In fact, it's quite the opposite at a lot of companies who are welcome the opportunity to help underwrite the cost of getting a degree for their high potential early career employees. We have a proposal from the Connecticut State College and Universities. We've given comments to manage the campaign. We've given comments back to them and have a conference call this afternoon to advance that. Hopefully, again, we'll have something to take to the MIF board in our February board meeting. On the website, again, refresh people's recollection, or for those who don't know, we're looking to put together a website that's different than most websites are structured to say, this is our organization, and you can go about the organization, you get a history, here's our products and services. This website is constituted differently. This is a website available to manufacturers that have an issue or a solution that they're looking for. And they can go in and sort of query on the solution that they're looking for, and then be connected to the resources around the state, the public and public-private resources that are out there. There are scores of programs in this state that are just first-rate programs, but they don't do anybody any good if they don't know about them. I've been with the state for over 2 years, and I'm still discovering new programs that are out there. I did just 2 weeks ago a new group that I didn't know about. And so this is really an effort to connect Connecticut manufacturers with a myriad of different resources that are available to them out there. So we've contracted with Department of Administrative Services to actually sort of write the script and to develop and implement the website. We also are working with Concept. We have a proposal that we're finalizing now to use some of their resources to do the due diligence to essentially build the database that we need to build to be the back end for the website. I expect that we'll have an agreement in place with Concept within the week. That's a 1 to 2 month process. There's a lot of groundwork that's been done for that, but then there's a lot of pick and spade work that needs to be done subsequent to that. So that's a 1 to 2 month program, and then it's another 2 months after that for the programming. So we hope to have this up and operational by certainly by the middle of this calendar year, the end of the second quarter. And then lastly, our regional career fairs. For some of you may be aware of the career fair and trade show that the ACM holds in non-pandemic years, holds annually at the Convention Center in Hartford. This year, even in sort of a quasi-COVID year, they attracted 800 students to their career fair. It was a beehive of activity. We're looking to help replicate that around the state. We've received a proposal from ReadyCT to be our partner on this, to administer this. We had comments and questions and concerns on their proposal. They are back sort of reworking that. And then also they're working to plug in with our regional sector partnerships to get their input on this. And I think probably where we're going to end up going is sponsoring probably 5 regional sort of career fairs around the state over the next 12 months after this program is put in place. So a lot going on. All of these initiatives stem from discussion that I and other MIF board members have had with folks in the manufacturing community, Connecticut manufacturing community, and they're designed to address specific issues facing our manufacturers. So with that, I'll pause and see if there are any questions or comments. So either I put everybody to sleep or I answered all the questions.
Colin, I had a quick question, I guess, or comment. This is Charles. How are you?
Hey, Charles. Great. Good to see you.
Good. Nice to see you as well. So some of the things that you're talking about in these new programs, specifically the website, the matching CT innovators with CT manufacturers, I know there are discussions about these topics in some of the regional sector partnerships that have been developed and some other groups as well. And so I guess I was looking for some advice on the best way to make sure that we're not duplicating efforts in these groups, or the best way to obtain information so that we're current when we're having discussions in these groups, so that, again, we're not reinventing the wheel, but maybe we're able to support some of the things that is already happening at the state.
Well, I think the best way to do that, obviously, is communication. I've been out sort of, you can see I put this presentation together back in December. I presented to a bunch of different groups. I've had some conversations with some of the people at the different regional sector partnerships. On the proposals, we've gotten some proposals from one of the regional sector partnerships on specific initiatives that they're looking to do. And so I don't think that we're necessarily duplicating or stepping on each other's toes. We need to continue to make sure that that's not the case. And so these are initiatives that we've been out socializing to people for well over 6 months. They were approved by the board back in October. I've been trying to make sure everybody understands where the MIF board is going. And I think as the regional sector partnerships develop theirs, we'd be well served to have, just the right hand knowing what the left hand's doing. I guess that's the best way to avoid, duplication or sort of competing initiatives.
Perfect. Thank you, Colin. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Colin. I'm sure your email inbox or DMs on here might be coming in offline. Certainly looking forward to any updates this time next year, or next month in February after the MIF board meets to approve on the go forward plan for these initiatives. So looking forward to learning about that.
Okay, I'm going to try to stop share now. There we go.
Perfect.
Are you back to control there, Jackie?
I am. So I will turn it over to Jeff, who will level set and then turn it over to Eric.
Good afternoon, everyone. Actually, we're still in morning. Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to decided as a group, given the last 2 weeks ago conversation, to present a little update on some of the efforts Concept has done using the Smart Industry Readiness Index. At this point, we've done 11 manufacturers. 6 of those were funded by the Digital Model Initiative program. And just want to share with you the insights those have provided. We think it's important to note that Connecticut appears to be a leadership role in Siri across the country, with Stanley Black & Decker having an assessor ready to go, and certainly talking about others, and we working with them on them. So just wanted to share with you where we are at this point. So, Eric. Eric, are you muted?
Okay, there we go. All right. Yeah, I requested control of it and realized that I lost all of my little buttons here for my my muting and unmuting. So thank heavens for keyboard shortcuts. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for the introduction, Jeff, and thank you for the opportunity to present this and talk about this. Obviously, it's something I'm very passionate about, and I'm going to have to curb the passion and enthusiasm a little bit to fit in the time here. But as Jeff mentioned, we just wanted to go through, an overview of what we've learned from some of these early Siri assessments, and give some insight into, what we're seeing in terms of Connecticut manufacturing. So by way of just a very brief overview of the Siri approach and the Siri process, basically what we're doing is to go in and talk with companies about their readiness to adopt Industry 4.0 technologies. The Siri method is really geared to be able to meet people wherever they're at. If they're starting their transformation, if they're in the middle of scaling things up, or if they're at that sustaining phase. So our approach is to go in and give them, some basic understanding of Industry 4.0 principles, the business benefits that can come from it. Obviously, take the current maturity levels, capture that information and document it so that they know where they're at. But more importantly, provide a roadmap for that incremental improvement. So we look at 3 different broad areas of the company: their processes, their use of technology, and then their organizational structure. And then we provide them at the outset, or the output of this, with some prioritized focus elements. So that's one thing we've seen where this This assessment methodology differs from a lot of others. Most assessments, you get to the end and it's, here's your report of your gaps. And, the person is left going, okay, now what? What should I do next? Where do I start with this? So we provide that focus for them and recommend some next steps. So in doing this, we spend some time talking with companies about 16 different dimensions, we call them, of their organization. How they manage their internal operations, how they manage their supply chain and their product life cycle within their company, how they use technology. And in this sense, we're talking about automation, connectivity, and intelligence. And we look at how they're using those three aspects of technology on their shop floor, at the enterprise or administrative level, and then also their facility in general, how they're actually monitoring and controlling their buildings, or if they are. And then finally, we look at their organization. We look at how they're developing their workforce, the awareness or competency level of the leadership teams in terms of Industry 4.0 and how to leverage it. And then also collaboration within the company and with your partners, and then your ability to create an Industry 4.0 strategy and create a set of rules for governing that. So as I mentioned, one of the powerful pieces of this assessment is this piece called the Prioritization Matrix. So in a nutshell, really quick, what we do is to look at each of those 16 dimensions that I just brought up. And for each one, we're going to provide some weighting factors. So we're going to look at how does each dimension impact their bottom line. So we look at a number of different cost factors that can be influenced by making investments in certain areas. We also look at their essential business objectives, or KPIs, and we apply another weighting factor there. Again, how much is that going to drive their business? And then we also look at the references to the broader community, or the benchmarking data. So this is another piece that Siri brings to bear, is having that benchmark data to see how you stack up, not just against general manufacturing in the world, but also for your specific industry as well. And what that does is to give us a sense of which areas do we need to highlight, which areas do we need to focus on first. So at the output of this, instead of just saying, here are the 16 scores, good luck, it's here are the 16 scores, but here are the 4 most important things for you to work on next. And your roadmap is going to look like this. So shifting gears now into some of the results that we've seen from the 11 assessments we've done so far, and some insights that we're gaining into that. So as Jeff mentioned, we've assessed 11 companies over the second half of last year. Quick breakdown of it. You can see here we had a few companies in the aerospace, precision parts, and general manufacturing industries. And those industry classifications are predetermined by Siri. So they bucket things into a certain number of different industries. Obviously, the most difficult one to look at is general manufacturing. It is kind of a catch-all, and you'll see that when we look at some of the results here. You're going to see a lot of different companies doing a lot of different things there. In terms of company sizes, we had a good range from 30 employees up to 430 employees, and revenues ranging from $5 million a year up to 130 million. And then you can see just a quick overview of the distribution of those company sizes. So one of the main things that we look at with Siri is something that we call the Transformation Archetype. So there's some analysis that's gone on behind the scenes since the Siri assessment was first developed. And we go through this process of comparing different industry sectors to different habitats around the world. So as you can see, those 3 categories that we've assessed here in Connecticut so far fall into what we call the tundra archetype. So we draw some parallels between tundra habitats in the world are associated with those harsh climates and difficult conditions. And we see that similarity in the market here. So for instance, highly customized products in relatively small volumes, a heavy reliance on skilled labor, that makes it difficult to come in and do a wide, far-reaching, large-scale transformation improvement or large-scale automation deployments. We also have a lot of conditions in terms of compliance and regulatory requirements that create some interesting, scenarios for our companies here. So there are other opportunities. It's not a complete doom and gloom situation. So for instance, in terms of automation, rather than focusing on a large scale automation deployment, taking a focus of more flexible automation, things where we can leverage similarities among product lines and create solutions that can be easily retasked or redeployed for different situations. Focusing on designing manufacturing processes around efficiency, workforce training. This is one that we are talking about a lot. The need to upskill people, the need to not only upskill the workers in terms of what they're doing, but also change the way that we're training those workers. Building supply chain resilience and efficiency is another big topic. And management systems is one that we'll talk about a lot, something that we refer to as vertical integration, bringing together the management systems and making sure that data is freely exchanged and freely available. So just some quick views of some of the results. So in each of these plots, you'll see the max and min scores for each of these categories and their average, as well as the Siri average for their industry. And a couple of things of note in the industry, in the aerospace industry, you can see this particular dimension here of enterprise connectivity tended to score fairly high. And that has a lot to do with the Department of Defense requirements and around cybersecurity. So we've seen a lot of investment into resilient, real-time, reliable networks. So that's a real shining point there. One of the other things that we noticed was a lot of variety down here on the right side. When you look at those organizational pieces, you can see quite a spread of states of those different companies. Again, as I said, in general manufacturing, quite a few differences. Of note here is, in direct opposition to what we saw with aerospace, not a huge amount of that enterprise connectivity piece. Definitely some work to be done there. And then for the precision parts, very similar to the aerospace, we see some companies that are doing a mix of aerospace and other industries. So that creates a little more variation in terms of, the processes and the advanced state of some of the systems. But we'll talk again about some more of the outcomes and some of the insights in some more specific details here. So one of the first insights I wanted to talk about was with respect to maturity in general. So looking here at the averages of the different companies that we've assessed, one piece that we look at is something called the planning horizon. So you can see at the bottom here, this is determined by what sort of time frame people are looking at for their planning purposes. So for instance, somebody who's in an operational planning horizon, they're looking 3 to 6 months out. Their focus is keeping the lights on, keeping paychecks going out. So cash flow is really important for them, as opposed to somebody in that strategic 3 to 5 year planning horizon, where now they're shifting, everything is running smoothly, but now we're shifting towards, let's put more focus on how we stack up in our industry. Let's put more emphasis on our benchmarking and competitive position. So one thing that we saw here, again, I mentioned that aspect of cybersecurity really pushing people to improve that enterprise connectivity state. So that's all of the computer systems that are running, all of your administrative processes, all of the office processes. That's driven some high scores there. In general, you can see here that companies with a strategic planning horizon tend to be higher on their maturity scores. So this just shows that these are leadership teams that have already started to think about Industry 4.0. And even though they might not be actively pursuing a strategy yet, it's on their radar and they're starting to build some of that foundation. And another interesting thing that we came across here is company size did not have a strong correlation to maturity. So we saw, some mid-size and on the larger end, one company in particular that, maturity scores were down there with everybody else. So again, and it really emphasizes it's not just about the size of the company, but it's about that strategic vision that makes a lot of difference. So as I mentioned, one of the aspects that we look at for helping companies prioritize where to focus is the key performance indicators, or KPIs. So this is the collection of the frequency of each of those KPIs, and these are selected by the client that's being assessed. So they pick the KPIs that are driving their business, the things that they're really focused on. And we see a couple of themes here. Again, touching back on that Tundra model, this aspect of highly customized parts, a fairly low volume but high mix. The efficiency and effectiveness of their systems and their equipment is absolutely critical to their success. Strong focuses on quality and on-time delivery. That's no surprise given those industries. But then also here, again, that workforce needing to be both flexible and efficient. That was something that was highlighted by most of these companies. Quality constraints have a lot of, bring a lot to bear in terms of the aerospace and precision parts industries. And most of the companies that we met with are struggling with effectively planning and scheduling, whether it's in response to changing customer demands or to supply chain issues. So that's an area that everybody identified was very important to them. And so some of the opportunities that this highlights really focused on some of the flexibility and performance of systems and equipment, in particular condition monitoring and predictive maintenance. Those are areas where we really need to help them focus and bring some impacts. On the cost factors, you can see some quick numbers here. Labor, raw materials, and consumables, and the combination of selling, general, administrative, and research and development were across the board the main cost factors. So again, the reliance on skilled labor, the complexity of the parts, and maturity and automation, that really drives that labor cost. No surprise that raw materials, when you have a bunch of people that are machining, very high value metals, they're going to be spending a lot of money on those aspects as well. And for this combination of SG&A and R&D, the thing to focus on there is, with the highly engineered parts that people are making, there's a lot of effort up front for these companies to interpret drawings, make sure everything is in place and set and ready for them to proceed into production. So helping them really address these costs, whether it's to reduce labor and raw materials costs or to be able to get more out of them. So that's one of the things we look at. We might not be able to lower your labor cost, but can we help you get more out of the workers that you have on staff? So again, these two driving factors were really what was behind driving us to some of these focus dimensions. So again, from that Tundra model, we saw a few things. Not a lot of recommendations for large scale automation, a lot more impacts that could be seen related to the integration of their processes. So this dimension that we refer to as vertical integration is one that came up in almost every assessment. That's getting all of your management systems, your ERP system, your MES system, getting them working together, getting them talking together, helping you streamline your ability to do the work that you do, getting rid of the necessity of workarounds and band-aids in your processes. And again, a lot of impacts to be gained from upskilling the workforce and augmenting the workforce. So I know this is kind of an eye chart here. The big thing that I want to get across here is the squares with the dark blue. This is where a particular dimension along the top here can have the most impact on some of those costs and KPIs. So you can see why, number one, why all of these recommendations were chosen. Given the focus that people have on their labor costs, their R&D and SG&A, the efficiency and time to delivery and quality KPIs, all of these are going to really drive those. And the flip side of this coin is that we see, this shows how an investment in one of these areas is going to have an impact on your cost factors and your KPIs. So we work with the company to walk through this and understand, why are we recommending this? What's in it for you? What's the benefit of focusing on one of these dimensions that we've talked about? So some of the lessons learned, quick summary here. Number one, Siri is a useful, again, it provides useful insight at any level of company. As we saw, we had companies as small as 30 employees and all the way up to 430. But we did notice a few things. Siri is best for companies where that leadership competency is high. That understanding is there, that awareness of the benefits that can be brought to bear with Industry 4.0 is very critical to helping the company move forward wherever they're at. Companies that are lacking in some effective process controls, we're going to get meaningful insights from Siri and we're going to get recommendations, but those recommendations are going to be very process improvement oriented, as opposed to here's your next step for technology adoption. So that's one thing that we look at is trying to get a good, quick understanding before we go into a company where they're at. This is something that I always have said to my clients, even back when I was selling automation equipment. My first question was, how solid are your processes? How efficient are things? Because I don't want to come in and sell you a piece of automation equipment just to have you make more scrap at a faster rate. If it's 10% of a million parts or 10% of 100 parts, it's still 10%. And then again, Siri is a really effective tool for companies that have a strong ability to deploy technology, but are lacking that focus of where do I go next? We saw a couple companies that they identified that as the most helpful thing to them. They said, we've got all kinds of ideas, we've got all kinds of things we want to work on, but we're not sure which one to focus on first. So creating that roadmap with them was critical. As we mentioned before, those forward-thinking leadership teams, they're already making some of those connections. They're connecting the dots between Industry 4.0 is going to help my company. It's going to sustain my business into the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years and beyond. But then beyond that, it's not about adopting technology for the sake of new technology. We have to tie it back to a business need. It has to drive the business itself. So some of the insights that we saw for our small manufacturing community here, number one, the need for increasing awareness, not just at the plant floor level, shop floor level, but also at the leadership level, helping to drive their strategy. The priority of intelligence over automation on the shop floor, again, going back to that Tundra archetype, helping people see the condition of things in the shop floor, helping them get that actionable intelligence is very critical for a lot of their operations. And then the sustainability of their transformation depends on a balance between workforce adoption of technology and leadership support of that same technology. If you have one side or the other trying to push it, if it's a top-down initiative, it's going to meet resistance at the floor level. If it's a grassroots initiative, it's going to run into opposition at the leadership level. So balancing that is absolutely critical. And then I know we've only got a couple minutes left here, but some quick recommendations on some of those key Siri dimensions that we looked at in terms of leadership competency and strategy. Increasing the awareness at the leadership levels of Industry 4.0 and the business benefits, helping them turn those technology visions into strategies, and then helping them with the effective deployment and the management of change initiatives. From the workforce side, we keep talking about that upskilling workers, but also an important thing to consider is how do we augment the skills that workers already have? How do we bring some of those tools to bear? Examples like guided assembly and training using artificial or augmented reality, those types of tools to help them do their job better, or to help them even get trained and up to speed better. On the shop floor, finding that right mix of intelligence and connectivity. The key there is really to give people that real-time view of what's the status of my manufacturing floor, what issues are coming up. As we look at automation, again, shifting that focus from the high volume automation to flexible solutions. A great example there, cobots that can be easily retasked for different operations. And then from that integration standpoint, everything in that process side, vertical and horizontal integration, integrating that product lifecycle management inside the company, leveraging things like model-based definition to help them streamline exchanging data with their customers and suppliers, integrating management systems, and bringing in that intelligence piece to give people the ability to respond in an agile way, giving people actionable intelligence instead of just burying them in data, really helping them respond to shifting demands or other issues that come up. So thank you for your time. I know it's a lot of information to go through in a short order, but happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you, Eric. Before we go to questions, and we will leave it open a little, I just want to wrap up a little for the day. So our next meeting will be on February 2nd. And so we'll come back together then. So now I'll open up to any questions that you have for Eric.
Hi, Eric. It's Nicole at Microboard. Thank you. Very thorough presentation. Quick question. I believe the metric is 2 to 3 Siri assessments a month. Is that right?
Yes, I think that's.
And is there, given that we've got, I think, close to 4,000 manufacturers, is there a plan to broaden that with additional staff and as the momentum starts growing?
So you're talking about the potential Siri assessments if Colin's digital awareness program goes into place and based on the money that has. Yeah, that number about right. We certainly are building capacity at Constep. I know Stanley Blacker's also got capacity potentially available for that. One thing that's important in that program and move forward is to make sure we stage stuff out so that implementation of the results is important, right? An assessment by itself is not really useful. So we continue to have that conversation to make sure there's enough staffing and resources that we can move forward with implementation, as well as supporting the actual Siri assessments.
So Nicole, from a Comstead strategic perspective, we have found this to be extremely useful to align with other assessments that we do and other work we do. We chose to expand it beyond the defense that the grant cover, and we use some of our own resources to basically fund additional work into other industries. As we get these results, we are committed to not only training, we have someone else that just trained for this within the organization, but to try to find that sweet spot where this becomes very actionable and then focus on those companies. As you said, there are 4,000 companies, and I keep thinking about at what level size-wise, even if it's useful to anyone, at what level size-wise it becomes more actionable in place so we can prioritize our resources. But so long answer to short, yes, we are putting it in our screen and looking for ways to partner with others to get the coverage that we need for the state.
Thank you.
Hey, Eric, great presentation. So the question I have is, I know it's a small sample, 11 companies, that's what you've assessed. How many of those companies, based on what you know, are willing to go to the next step of some level of implementation?
Yeah, thanks. Great question. We've got a couple of engagements that have already come out of this. So 2 companies outside of that digital model initiative project. We've had some discussions. We're actually having a kickoff for an implementation with a third-party resource this afternoon from one of those. So it is, they are seeing the needs to proceed with things. They are seeing that focus that comes from it to figure out what to focus on next. And then I know from the 6 that we did as part of the digital model initiative, part of the work is already going on specific to model-based definition, but we have had some follow-up conversations on other aspects that came up in Siri, and that's sort of queued up in their future focus for additional work. So it is bringing some, tangible results out of it where they see that next step that they need to take and are better able to, take those next steps and figure out what to do next.
Thank you.
I think Bead was probably the smallest company in your data set there, Eric, but I will say that.
And we were trying to make sure nobody did that, Jill.
No, that's okay. I guess I just wanted to point out that it was really cool to see where we fell related to some of the larger companies, but it was such an amazing experience because our entire leadership team is now aligned on what we need to do. And a lot of those things, we knew we need to do them, but they were validated in which ones were going to be more impactful and which ones we should start on now. And because we also use EOS, we've taken the initiatives and the roadmap from Siri and put them into our 3 and 5 and 10-year plan. So we're like taking little bites off a bit at a time, which with our limited resources is what we can do. But like one of the things with the vertical integration was one of the top ones, Eric, you were pointing out.
Mhm.
We found out that we had a lot of gaps with our ERP system. And of course, it will require some more assessments of where those gaps are. But now we can validate taking that time and spending that money to do that. Because if our ERP system is all over the place and we can't be labor efficient, we can't be scheduling well, it trickles down to everything else. So it was hugely impactful for us. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of those things that, like I said, almost across the board, we've seen that with all of these assessments so far, is that vertical integration piece is so critical to just helping you align how to do what you need to do on a day-to-day basis. So it's not a surprise when that comes up as a focus dimension for somebody. And you brought up something that I think is a great point with this assessment, is that, again, we're going to take a day to a day and a half to work with somebody and go through that, look at those 16 different areas of their company. And so the recommendations that come out of this are, it's not a detailed implementation plan of here's exactly what you need to do. This is the piece of software or hardware that you need to buy. I kind of draw a parallel to the lean and continuous improvement world, where this is, in a sense, a type of value stream map, where we're looking at what are the pieces of your company, what does it take for you to get an order in the door and parts out the door. And so we're identifying what are those areas where you need some help, and then each of those dimensions that comes out as a priority for focus. Again, borrowing from that lean idea, it becomes one of those Kaizen events where there's going to be a deeper dive. We're going to go in and spend some more time to look at, what's the nature of this problem, what are the right tools to fix it, and set about with that project. So, I tell people that roadmap it's not the A to Z of exactly what you need to do, but it's the waypoints on your map. It's the spots where you need to stop and take a deeper dive.
I'd like to point out that, at least from my conversations with Eric and what he's told me, that internal alignment and the prioritization has been consistent across all companies. So it has nothing to do with you being small, Jill. That has been, every company is limited in their resources and needs to make decisions, and that improved alignment and prioritization has been beneficial to all 11 of the companies that he's worked with.
Yeah, I think that across the board, when we go back in to provide the report, the feedback that we've heard is we're not surprised. After we did the workshop, after we heard ourselves talking about things, we're not surprised at the recommendations that came out of it. It really does generate that alignment with the team, having everybody there to talk about it and hear the pain points and understand why it's important to address those things is another very powerful piece. So.
All right, any more questions?
All right.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric, and everyone else for hanging on the line for another 7 minutes. Our core team will hang on the line as we have our debrief session. So for the rest of you, please have a wonderful rest of your day and rest of your week, and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.